Sling TV has something for everyone. It really just depends on what kind of mood you're in. But no matter what you're looking for, you can watch it with Sling. Sports, news, and today's hottest shows. Plus, you can explore thousands of movies and TV shows on demand. And getting Sling is easy. Sign up and start watching in just 5 minutes. Stream on any device and record up to 50 hours with your included DVR space. Plus, you won't get locked into a long-term contract. Check out sling.com for special offers. Sling, the TV you love for a price you'll love. Try it today.
Thinking through it, and I mean, for me, we built this program on NIL. We really did, and it's probably different than what you're thinking, though. We built this program in God's name, image, and likeness, and that's how I look at it. So,
welcome to Stars Matter, a recruiting podcast from The Athletic. I'm Mitch Light, joined by Ari Wasserman and I would say special guest Andy Staples Show, but this really is the Andy Staples Show and friend feeds. We're live on YouTube, and that, of course.
Guys, do you know who the original recruiting coordinator was?
God.
Jesus Christ.
It was Jesus. That's right. He was the first recruiting coordinator.
How do we think, has Dabo had that in his back pocket all year, or did he just walk up to the podium and just come out?
That smile says he has been waiting long.
It's not that he's been waiting. I think that he was rehearsing that in the mirror today before he went out there.
Oh,
it
was
that George W.
for sure.
That George W. Bush, and not exactly how you think about it. Yeah, that was my favorite part of the day. I mean, it was a pretty crazy day, like always is on the first day of the early signing period. But that was some good stuff, and really on brand too, and it's so funny too, because I was like looking through, Clemson's class, and I think I even sent you a screenshot of the Twitter header for the quarterback, Andy. I don't know if you saw it.
Oh yeah.
Chris Vizina has his cover photo of God knows exactly what he's doing, and it's like, people like us are gonna, joke about it or whatever.
Oh no, that's very much part of their program, and
yeah,
one of the things
they get kids to buy into it.
And they get kids that are like-minded, and guess what? It works. It creates a very good culture that wins lots of games.
Yeah, yeah. I think it remains to be seen.
Ari, as you pointed out to me today, what's their class, 10th or 11th? We're talking about Dabo's NIL comments. We're not talking about his lowest ranked class in several years too. So
yeah, it's like the God NIL brought Dabo Sweeney the 11th best class in the country this year. So the past is the past, and I've been on high alert about Clemson's direction for 2 years now, and I think this is another step in the wrong direction. But if he goes out and develops like he's developed in the past, and Vizina turns into the next Trevor Lawrence, and they've got defensive linemen in this class that aren't highly rated that turn out to be studs like some of the guys that they've had in the past, and Peter Woods, and there's elements to it for sure, but I just, it's hard to buy stock in that program right now.
Yeah,
it has been for 2 years. 6
top 125 guys, like you mentioned, like Woods and Vizina. Mm-hmm. There are definitely some high end caliber guys there. So it remains to be seen. But I think the story of the day, guys, what do you think? Oregon? I think it's got to be Oregon football. Yeah. Ari, you wrote a column about it. My keyboard was still smoking after editing it. But it was rational, and I mean, you were passionate about it. Why don't you kind of share with the kind of the folks what you wrote about?
And we're still like waiting for Peyton Bowen to sign, and I do think that we should be high alert that, like, if Peyton Bowen, who announced for Oregon a flip out of Notre Dame's class, and to Oregon over Oklahoma, who also was involved here, ends up signing with Notre Dame tomorrow, that would probably go down in the list of signing day things that we would write a story about in 10 years from now about how that all played out. But the Oregon Ducks got, I think, 6 players on Wednesday, 3 of whom were 5-star prospects, 5 of whom were fringe top 100 players or better. And they still are technically alive, from what I understand, for David Hicks, who has signing on Friday, who's a 5-star prospect who's committed to A&M. So, like, my whole thing was, this is incredible. Look what they're doing. They've got a great class, and everybody that wasn't an Oregon fan in my mentions was talking about cheating and Texas A&M 2.0 and this team isn't. This is
Or
how
you're not allowed to get really good players if you're not one of the teams that already gets really good players. You're not allowed to do that.
And Dave Up,
culture was a word. Culture was a word that was used a lot in your comments.
And I got to get credit to David Ubben, because we were texting about it before I wrote it, and the way he put it was SEC on the West Coast, and people don't like that, And it's like, I don't know if Oregon's class in totality can match up with an SEC class right now. Well, most of them, not Alabama's and Georgia's, but it wasn't so much who they have or how they've recruited in the past. It was more about the ruthlessness of how they did it, and doing it at the end of the thing.
Mario Cristobal wasn't ruthless also.
No, I know, but to get 3 5-star prospects on signing day is not a very Pac-12 thing to do. I think we can agree on that. And if you think about the programs that Oregon beat out in the process, they got the best of Notre Dame, they got the best of Oklahoma, Ohio State, USC, LSU, and a few others. And it was just like, you're flipping a kid from LSU on signing day. You're flipping a kid from Notre Dame who also has big interest in NIL rumors with Oklahoma. I mean, you're doing something. So, the thing that I think we all have to remember, and the reason why I like the Dan Lanning hire to begin with, is you're talking about a head coach who comes from a background that involves winning national championships and building national championship caliber rosters. That same coach played against his old team in his first game as a head coach this year and got his doors blown off in a way that I'm sure he probably saw coming, because he understands the difference. And I'm not sure that Dan Lanning deserves all the credit in the world for what happened here today. Obviously, NIL had to have played some sort of part here with some of these guys making this last-second decision, but to win the recruiting battle for Mateo Uiagalelei and to flip 4 guys in the same day, 3 of which were 5-star prospects, and still have a chance to flip somebody from A&M, that was like big-time NIL era recruiting at its finest, and that's going to make some people uncomfortable, and people don't like that.
As Brian in the chat points out, he says it has more to do with Oregon poaching A&M's recruiting staff than cheating. Marshall Malkow, the chief of staff at Oregon, was in the same role at Texas A&M.
Yeah,
as they assembled last year.
And the thing that really blows my mind, guys, and I'd like to hear your opinion on this, is like, we're talking about a program who is 2 days removed from losing a 5-star quarterback that was supposed to cripple their build.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, if it was all NIL and it's all Nike and nothing else matters, they don't have good recruiters, they don't have a coach who gets it, they don't have a great recruiting staff, then why didn't they get the guy that everybody wanted? So I really like what I'm seeing from them, and it gives you, if you said a year from now or a year ago that a year from now we'd be talking about Dan Lanning doing what Mario Cristobal did, wouldn't you feel a great deal of relief? Because, he has the background, but the fact that he was able to execute it and get these guys in the fold, and Austin Novosad too, like, you lose your quarterback and then 2 days later replace him with a guy who lit up the Elite 11.
Yeah, that's what's going to be my point. The response, because a couple of days ago it looked like it was falling apart, and then I think it was late last night, or you kind of got word that Austin Novosad, a kid that you've written about, you saw him at the Elite 11, not just a Baylor commit who's climbed the rankings, but who Ohio State really wanted, who Notre Dame really wanted, and
who Will Stein,
A&M really wanted.
Yeah, Will Stein, Oregon's new offensive coordinator, who came from UTSA, really knew.
Yeah. And he recommitted to Baylor after Baylor had to sweat it out this summer, recommitted. And, so Baylor's been operating this whole season as if they've got their quarterback, and they wake up, or last night they find out he's gone. So it's just it's a tough world out there, and great get for Oregon. He's not ranked as high as Moore is, obviously, but obviously they like him, and a lot of really, really good programs like that.
Yeah, and what's crazy too is that, like, they took punches from the NIL cheaters of last year. and Baylor withstood it, and if Texas A&M is the punching bag for everybody who thinks that NIL is cheating, then it obviously wasn't enough to get A&M to get this kid. So was it all NIL? I'm sure it was part of it, but like, they did a good job too. So I think if you I'm going to write a winners and losers column. I don't know if Mitch is going to be on vacation when I write it or not. But
I'm not. Andy, by the way, I'm not allowed to leave or go anywhere if Ari wants to work. So
is it the early signing period?
It is.
Would you take an 8-hour drive on the early signing period if you were the National Recruiting Writers editor?
It's supposed to snow, huge snowstorm up in Michigan, so I don't want to risk my life on Friday.
I'm kidding, but when you go through the winners and losers of the day, it's undeniably Oregon and everybody else, right? Like, Alabama got 2 5-star prospects.
Alabama's, and they're still in for Desmond Ricks too. So
yeah.
Georgia, the reigning national champs, that's probably about to win a second consecutive national championship. They did okay too.
Hey, you watch your mouth. TCU's in their way.
Yeah, but one thing, Jorian Dickey, the wide receiver, has evidently he's signed either. So
so we'll see how it all
as great as things are
out.
going. There's still some, I don't know if negotiating is the right term, whatever.
But the thing about it to me though, like, and everybody always says I'm overreactionary. So you guys put me in my place if I'm being overreactionary. It isn't even it isn't even the result of it. It's how it happened and the ability to recruit with the big boys at that level in such a it kind of reminded me of the Breaking Bad prison scene when Walter White needed those 6 guys to disappear. They disappeared. They all took care of it. You know what I mean? And like being able to just be on that plane is an encouraging thing for the long-term future of a program that's going to have to recruit a certain way. So, and Jurian Dickey, they're saying in the comments, has officially signed with Oregon. Okay. So that's one less thing that we have to worry about as it pertains to Oregon's class. I got to say, it's a lot to keep track of everything that happens in this day. So thank you, Mitch and Andy, for helping us put it in perspective. But Oregon would be my number one winner.
Let's transition to another, I guess, still current Pac-12 school, USC. Kind of lackluster. Hire Lincoln Riley. I know there's one person on this podcast that was expecting immediate top 5 classes. They get commitments from 3 5-stars about a year ago. They only have two more top 125 guys since. It's a good class, not a elite class. I think from a performance standpoint, they will have Caleb Williams one more year. It's going to be a very good team next year. But if they want to compete for playoff spots on an annual basis, they're going to have to kind of elbow their way up into that top 7, top 8, not in the top 15.
This was like a Clay Helton class. I would be very interested for you to look this up because I won't do it. If this is the first time in the history of recruiting rankings that a team that signed 3 5-star prospects finished outside of the top, or was it at the 15 spot or lower?
I would say probably outside of the top 10. I can't, just doing the math, I can't imagine a team could have signed 3 5-stars and not been a top 10 class.
Well, Andy, what did you think it was going to look like a year in?
I thought it would look different than this, but you guys aren't going to believe this. But there's only one lineman ranked in the top 250.
Well, so that's the thing with USC's class. It's like,
Braylon Shelby's an edge, but only one offensive lineman or defensive tackle, which if you've listened to this podcast feed for a long, long time, my problem with Lincoln Riley teams is they don't have really great big guys. And why didn't you get any great big guys?
That's the thing that you have to talk about.
Fix it.
USC got 2 of the top 5 players nationally, so it's super top heavy. But what do you think the reason is? I think that it not happening is one thing, but California in general this year was a down state from what it usually is. And I think part of the reason for that is the weird COVID year and how it stopped people from developing for a year. And I think that might be part of it. But you can't give any excuses. I was talking to Antonio Morales on the phone about this earlier today. It's not that he's a first-year head coach, because he certainly has the experience of being a top 5-10 coach at his previous stop. And there are other first-year head coaches in the top. I mean, if you go look at the top 10 right now, how many Notre Dame has finished 9, top 10, first-year head coach, Oklahoma first-year head coach, Oregon first-year head coach, LSU first-year head coach, Miami first-year head coach. I mean, that's not a reason. So what do you think the problem is?
I don't understand.
Those linemen didn't exist in the state this year.
In the state, so go find them somewhere else.
No,
Alabama,
I know.
When Jonah Williams was growing up in California, Nick Saban was like, "Oh well, he lives in California. Guess we can't get him."
Yeah. Well, because when I made this bet with you, Andy, the $1,000 bet that I lost at the last game of the year this year, my thought was they would do really well in the portal. They'd always have a very good quarterback, and the first class that they get is just going to be bonkers good.
Yeah.
So the fact that it finished 15th, right now, combine it with the fact that they're going to be in the Big Ten in year 3, really makes me uncomfortable about where I stand in this bet after getting ready to cash my ticket.
I just don't understand, when you know what your problem is, why don't you just go fix it when you have the capability to do it? You are the coach at USC, for God's sake. Go across the country and go offer the best offensive linemen and best defensive tackles you can find. wherever they live
And get
go
three.
get them.
Get
Go
3
get
out of the
some of them.
20. Yeah.
Like,
Right.
The best interior defensive lineman at USC of the past 15 years. Do you know where he's from?
I'm trying to think of who it is.
It's Leonard Williams. He's from Daytona Beach, Florida.
Okay, I thought it was Georgia, but yeah.
Yeah.
And I just edited Antonio's story before this, Antonio Morales, and I know you probably talking about this already earlier, but like every excuse you can come up with can be like debunked. Like, okay, well, you know, first year coach, like you mentioned, all the first year coaches did well. Performance on the field, like Mario Cristobal was terrible at Miami this year. They went 5-7. He had a great class. USC has Lincoln has twice as many wins this year as has more wins this year than Steve Sarkisian has in 2 years combined, and Texas has a good class. So the bottom line was Antonio said, like, no excuses, just go out and do it. Now, next year's class
And their
is
defense
better.
stinks, but so does Miami's.
Yeah. Right, yeah, exactly. Like, it's okay. Yeah, he said Alex Grinch might not have the best reputation.
Miami's everything stunk.
Right,
And
yeah. Their attendance, everything about that program this year was not good, and they had a good class. So, and certain other name programs that might not be mastering the NIL game, like Ohio State, still had a better year than USC. So Antonio's point was just like, no excuses. 2024 is a better class. There's better haul in state. You better get it done next year.
Right.
So that is definitely will be a storyline to watch. And also, Antonio wrote about this, is like in years past when Oregon was doing well, USC fans could kind of explain it away that, Clay Helton. But now they've got a good coach who's already proven.
And this started in last year's class too, when they got Josh Conerly Jr. over them.
Yeah. So
an offensive lineman. Yes, exactly.
Yeah, another offensive lineman for sure.
So Alabama seems like they're gonna sign
Still
a lot
awesome.
of good players. Yeah, still awesome. There was
well, let me ask you guys this. This was fun. Dun, da, 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 Ari's game show.
okay.
All right.
You're gonna
I'm
actually
ready.
come up with a file that is in it. But
We'll come up with a song.
you're
We
gonna
need
win
theme
a
song.
brand new Mercury Tracer if you get this right.
Sweet.
From behind the curtain here.
Okay.
What is the first year, Saban or not, as the head coach, where Alabama signs a recruiting class that finishes outside of the top 15? Or sorry, out of the top 5. What is the first year that happens?
Like moving forward.
If you had to guess.
Moving forward?
Yeah,
Oh,
moving
good
forward.
Lord.
Yeah.
2028.
I mean, he's under contract past that.
Oh,
And I don't know what the hell
He's
he's
just
gonna
trying
do
not to
with himself.
overbid like the Price is Right.
Yeah.
If you go over,
Yeah.
you lose.
Yeah.
I would say it's somewhere in the 30s.
Yeah, I think you're right. That's in the 2030s. He's under contract, I think, till 2030, or maybe 2031. That puts him into his 80s or close to his 80s.
and one thing to watch is not that Alabama relies on in-state players, but this was a banner year in state, the best ever in the modern recruiting era.
And Auburn had a coach who didn't want to recruit and then
Yeah.
fired him. And the guy who actually wants to recruit has only been Auburn's coach for a month.
Right. If he was there,
And he actually came out and said today that the recruiting standard of where we want to be is very far off from where we should
Hugh
be.
Freeze said that?
Yeah.
If Hugh Freeze had been Auburn's coach a year earlier,
They get
this-
3 of those guys out of the
this
top 10.
historic year in Alabama, Auburn would have been able to take advantage of more.
Did
Well, the
you-
funny thing about it too is that I think that 6 out of the 10 guys that were top 100 players in the state of Alabama were linemen, defensive linemen. So, like, I need to go back and add that up. But
you know who should have been recruiting in the state of Alabama?
Brian
Auburn?
Harsin?
No, USC.
USC.
Yeah. So if you go look at the Alabama has 27 signees right now, 8 of whom are from the state of Alabama, which I think is probably the highest it's been in a long time for them to take 8 in-state guys. Of those 8, I'm counting it up right now. 4 of them, half of them are defensive linemen.
Yeah. I mean, they also get those guys when they're there. The Quinnen Williams of the world, the homegrown D linemen. They're great at getting those guys.
Did you
But
guys
they don't
watch
let them leave.
The one
you
that
wa-
was surprising, and you got to give Clemson their roses if we're going
Yes.
to make fun of our Lord's program.
Justin
but
Ross?
they got Peter
Peter
Woods this year.
Oh yeah. Oh, Peter Woods this year.
And
Yeah. Well,
Peter
Isaiah
Woods is
Justin
a
Ross
5-star
in
defensive lineman,
2018. Yeah. Who?
And their quarterback, Christopher Vazine, is from there too. So,
But Alabama also had 2 top 100 quarterbacks
Yeah,
committed. So
but Clemson hopped over every other SEC program in
True,
the country to go
true.
get those guys. So,
did you guys see the James Smith and Qua Russo announcement today on ESPN? It was the least thrilling announcement ever. They went right to him. They stood at each other, said, okay, what's it going to be? They stood and looked at each other for about 20 seconds. No one said anything. And then someone muttered Alabama and they put on Alabama hats. So not a lot of suspense there.
Well, we heard there was some Georgia steam there,
right,
at the end, didn't we? So
yes.
But that's what you want if you're Nick Saban. Those are the guys you want. They're like, no frills, like
no props. Yeah.
We understand there's some talent ahead of us. Don't care. Like, so that's and it's the more I see this stuff, because NIL obviously at that level of recruit is going to be a factor with every single guy. But how much they let it be a factor in their recruitment is different depending on the person. And I would argue that the person who is just wrenching it out, like every 5 minutes going back, well, can we get a little more? Or we maybe go somewhere else. Can we get a little more? That person's probably not going to be good, because that person just doesn't have the right mentality.
And I think that's happened. I've heard that happening on 5 different occasions on Wednesday. So like that, and I understand if you're negotiating, when you're at a car dealership, you want to get every dollar you can get out of them. So,
but I bet there's a bunch of guys. I bet it's most of them at that level who did their negotiating. There was a number they were happy with, whether that came last week or 3 months ago. They took it and they're like, well, okay, sounds good. I'm ready to go.
Right. They know they're worth a certain amount and they're fine with that. And they're not going to risk risk's not the right word, for an extra X $1,000. They're like, this is better than if I came along 5 years ago, this is a hell of a lot better than I'm would have done then. So also,
I don't want to be I guy.
I feel bad because I feel like I would do that.
You definitely would
definitely do that. Yeah.
You would be in the port. You're like those Oregon guys are. You're bad culture. You'd be in the portal after 2 games.
I'd be in the portal with my freaking pockets stuffed.
That is the question with Oregon, just as it was with Texas A&M this year. Now, I would argue that Texas A&M, their problems were bigger than that. Their problems were offensive scheme.
How many of the people from A&M's class last year are in the portal? Isn't it 1?
It's 3.
1 was removed from the team, I think.
Well, 2 of them were removed from the team.
But their class that signed 18 top 100 players is largely intact on the roster still.
Yes.
So I don't know, if we're
the ones who are not constantly suspended, still there.
Okay, so I'm not. It's not all lost, is what I'm saying.
No, it's not. It's absolutely, and that's what I'm trying to say.
15 top 100 players,
a nifty play caller can fix a lot of problems.
A lot of their issues were schematic, were coaching, were not necessarily talent. There were some locker room chemistry issues, and the people who kept screwing up are not there. So perhaps that gets fixed. But
didn't Jim, which is big news for this podcast, admitted today that he needs to get a play caller?
Yeah, he's been saying it. Yeah. But that is a function. What happened chemistry wise is a function of taking the highest rated people who will take the bag. Like that's a function of that.
If I agree that there's a correlation between savvy business people and not motivated.
It doesn't. No, it's not. Because if you still have to evaluate them as the coach. If you get people who are savvy business people who take care of their business, they're still going to win and be really good. It's the ones who are savvy.
But do you think that the people who are playing grab ass financially at the last minute are less likely to do good?
I think someone who doesn't get their stuff together early on or in a pretty timely fashion, someone who's at the last second still trying to wring every little last thing out, maybe their priorities might not be.
I think there's nothing wrong with wanting your money, and let's just make up the money, whatever it is. But if you're getting your $30,000 or $50,000, whatever, that's fine. But it's
Mitch, when you get a job offer, and
I ask for less money. All right.
No. I'm saying when you get a job offer. And you had a job for a long period.
Yeah, but this is only my second job.
Since you were 13. But when the Athletic came to you and offered you a job, did you say just okay, or did you counteroffer?
There was a slight counteroffer.
Okay,
but all that stuff has happened. There's been a year where that stuff could have happened, Ari. It didn't have to happen in the last 24 hours.
Yeah, unless Mitch was talking to the Athletic and then New York Times came in. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Which is happening a lot, I think.
But that's not necessarily all new bidders. Some of these guys are like, let's try to get one more bite at the apple here, one more squeeze of the udder, as it were.
All right, we got to take a break. When we come back, I have a question for Andy that I asked Ari on Monday's pod. The more pain for this for fan base A or fan base B? We'll get to it right when we get back.
Sling TV has something for everyone. All your favorite shows on your favorite channels, all right at your fingertips. What you watch is up to you. It really just depends on what kind of mood you're in. So if you're looking for sports, Sling's got you covered with pro and college football and basketball, baseball, hockey, soccer, golf, racing, and so much more. Sling also has reality TV, so you can keep up with the latest gossip with today's hottest shows on channels like TLC, Bravo, MTV, and more. And don't forget about news. Get up to date with today's most trusted sources like MSNBC, CNN, and Fox News. Feeling adventurous? Explore thousands of movies and shows on demand. So what kind of mood are you in? No matter your answer, Sling has what you need. Getting Sling is easy. Sign up and start watching in just 5 minutes. You can stream on any device, and you can record up to 50 hours with your included DVR space. And the best part, you can pause or customize your subscription at any time. So check out sling.com for special offers. Sling, the TV you love for a price you'll love. Try it today. I have 10,000 pictures of my kids on my phone, but no idea how I'm going to compile all of them into an actual story for them. Artifact completely solves this problem. At the end of each year, they create a narrated video yearbook about each of my kids. Artifact sets me up with a professional interviewer to talk about my children throughout the year. I add photos wherever I want, and the whizzes of Artifact edit it all together into a video yearbook. It's easy, fun, and affordable. The grandparents absolutely love it. You know what? One day, this is going to be an amazing gift for the kids themselves. You might remember that Artifact is a longtime sponsor of this show, and they still do life stories of older family members. But now they have a product for parents like me watching my kids grow up way too fast and wanting to hold on to those memories while they're fresh. You can sign up to try it for yourself for less than $9 a month when you use my code STAPLES at checkout. So go to heyartifact.com/kids and enter the code STAPLES to get started. That's heyartifact.com/kids and enter the code STAPLES.
All right, Andy. So put you have subscriptions to every message board on these two fan bases. You're on the boards all day. You live and die with recruiting.
Yeah.
Are you more? What's more painful? You're an Iowa fan losing Caden Proctor this year to Alabama, or you're a Florida State fan losing Travis Hunter to Jackson State last year?
Travis Hunter, no question, because it was Deion, it was alum of Florida State who took him. Like Caden Proctor going to Alabama makes sense. I was watching Iowa fans try to make fun of Alabama fans about offensive linemen, and they kept bringing up Ross Pierschbaker, who had won some national titles, and they kept comparing him to Tristan Wirfs. I'm like, what? They don't even play the same position. Like, at least compare him to like Jedrick Wills or something. Like, but Alabama still has more first rounders at that position. Like, they're better at everything than you. So why would you ever think
they're better at the thing that you're great at?
Yeah. They are literally better at everything than you. So you shouldn't be surprised when somebody who was going to pick you picks them.
Yeah, that's
my
what I
wife
said.
is really, really small. And whenever she feels physically like ever since she was a kid, like physically challenged in any way, whether she's wrestling with kids or her older brother or whatever, or she bites people. It's like it's her only it's her only way to defend herself because she's 4'11". And you know what? Like, that's kind of like what Iowa was doing, right? They're just biting people. trying to.
It's an interesting comparison.
They actually probably should have tried that this year on offense. It might have worked better.
Yeah. So if you're Florida State and you lose Travis Hunter, that's like, it's not an indictment on your program. It was a once in a lifetime thing where Deion Sanders was the coach.
Though. Incredibly painful.
True.
Yes.
But they have rebounded.
I don't think that losing a kid to Alabama is an indictment on your program either. You just get owned by the people who own you.
I mean, neither is an indictment on the program. They both suck for those fan bases. It's just
frustrating because he was committed for that long. And he was kind of the example. Look, see, we developed these guys. A 5-star recruit has recognized that. He believes in what we do. And he's like, wait a second, over there in Tuscaloosa, they developed more guys. So I'm just going to go there.
Yeah, and his teammate Nwamka, the safety, Xavier, not quite as highly rated, but a top 50, top 60 guy. He did the same thing, Ohio State, Notre Dame, but he stayed home. So just painful. It happens, but it's kind of how the way the food chain works.
Yeah. The funniest thing about this whole thing too, and just going back to Oregon for a second, is like Oregon did all this today. And it's like Alabama is the only program in the country that has 6 5-star prospects signing, right?
Yep.
That's like, it's the same ecosystem, but Alabama never gets made fun of for the NIL stuff, right?
That's what I said at the beginning. You're allowed to get them if you're one of the schools that always gets them. You're only cheating if you're not one of the schools that always gets them, and suddenly you get them.
Right.
Ari, are we ready for the Ohio State conversation?
Yeah.
Oh boy.
So just a little background.
Talk about down bad, bud.
Yeah, missed on 3 edge rushers, 3 5-star edge rushers down the stretch. Keon Keeley, Alabama.
Wait, are we saying that the factory's closed? Like there's not going to be a 6'6", 260-pound edge rusher, one stacked behind the other 4 classes in a row anymore?
Well, one of them was supposed to be Mateo Uiagalelei or Damon Wilson, and they went 0 for, and then they went 0 for on all 50-50 prospects today.
And they like Kion Lee commits to flips to Auburn.
Ryan Day said it used to be when people committed, people stopped recruiting them. I remember a Big Ten coach who had been in the SEC previously laughing at the Big Ten coaches in their quote unquote gentleman's agreement to not recruit committed players.
Yeah.
Where did that guy coach? Which Big Ten school was that, by the way?
And Ohio State flipped somebody 2 weeks ago. So, like, what are we talking about here?
Yeah.
I went back and I listened to it because I had my column fingers ready. And I don't think that he
did he not mean it that way.
If you watch the video, it wasn't he. I'm not saying he looked great. I'm just saying it wasn't like if you were to write a column saying you are being a wuss right now because you're like, this is Ohio State. Why are you complaining about guys getting flipped? That would have been a little bit disingenuous because I don't think that's what he meant. But either way, like it just hasn't been a great month for Ohio State any way you slice it.
And they're playing the college football playoff.
And then everybody keeps saying that as like that's the redeeming quality. It's like they're going to get their ass kicked. So like what Ohio State fans are going to watch the game, they're going to show up, they're going to root, they're going to hope for the best. But like that's not like let's just wait 2 weeks and we get to watch our team in the playoff. It's like they think in 2 weeks they're going to get killed. Like that's not exciting.
True. A little perspective. They have 7 top 100 guys. 1 5-star, Brendan Ennis, another 5-star, another French 5-star in Noah Rogers. But both those guys play wide receiver, the position where they have plenty of 5-stars. So they could use some.
Yeah. 3 of their top 7 players are wide receivers. And they have a gaping hole, in my opinion, at the safety position, which they absolutely needed, and the defensive line position, which they absolutely needed. And they are supposed to be, addressing some of these things in the portal, and they haven't done that very well. So, it's just not. It's a class that's going to finish in the top 5, but that is not an Ohio State class. Any way you slice it, 7 top 100 players, 3 of whom play receiver. You're saying that like for all the issues that team has from top to bottom, that they're only going to get 4 top 100 players that don't play the position that they already have. Like it's not a well-balanced class.
And you guys have probably talked on previous shows, and Ari, we did on Monday, but Dylan Raiola, the quarterback from Arizona, kind of out of nowhere flipped.
Yeah, he flipped. And by the way,
not flipped, excuse me, decommitted.
I would say he's a 2024 guy.
2024, yes.
It's a 2024 guy that people are comparing to Patrick Mahomes.
Nebraska player.
Right. And it's, that stuff happens. Decommitments. If you go look at Ohio State's track record, they've had a lot of early commitments that they've had at the position a year in advance they've lost. And then they've replaced them with somebody good. I've got no doubt in my mind that Ohio State's going to go find a top 100 quarterback to be their 2024 commitment, because that's a hell of a position to be in, because whoever that is going to be an heir apparent to, the position. But that also completely changed and shifted their philosophy on what quarterback to take in 2023, because they thought they could take a filler guy like Mac Jones this year and, hope for the best, and maybe he turns out great. But, Dylan Raiola was supposed to be the guy that came in, and they, as a result of it, mismanaged their position, because the 2023 quarterback could have been a 5-star stud like Dante Moore or somebody if they would have gone all in on him, that they didn't, because they thought they had it in the bag. So like any way you slice it too. And like, there's a huge NIL discussion happening in the Ohio State Twitterverse right now about whether or not they have the correct mobilization of the funds of how to get these guys, because Damon Wilson 2.5 weeks ago was a shoo-in to be in Ohio State's class. Now he's signing with the opponent they're playing in the college football playoff, and people are wondering, why can't Ohio State get the money together to get these guys, paid well enough to stay in the fold? And, for a program that's, in a city like that has as much money and resources as it does, like, I'm not sure I'm here for that discussion in terms of feeling bad for Ohio State. But even if your NIL is kind of in shambles and you're not mobilized the right way, like, I don't know if I could point at any particular, direction of this program and go, I feel really good about that.
If they beat Georgia, all of this goes away, by the way.
Yeah, I know.
Right.
And if I hit the lottery, I'll never have to work again.
You would stop working with me, Ari?
Yes.
No,
Come on.
I'd keep podcasting with Andy. I would definitely stop writing for you, though.
You love this too much. Can we, speaking of the quarterback discussion, can we get into the quarterback discussion? I know we need to take another break. Let's take that other break.
What's the quarterback discussion?
There's a Kirby Smart quote.
Yes.
From National Signing Day that when I heard it, I was like, did he just say that? And the more I thought about it, I was like, it was the Alonzo Mourning gif in real time. Like, he's probably right.
I have no idea what you're talking about, so I'm excited to hear it.
You are going to love it.
Andy, unlike you, I read the messages that you put in Slack about show prep. So unlike Ari, so I know exactly what you're talking about.
Ari's so much better when he doesn't prep. He's like a racehorse. You just take the blinders off and let him go. We'll be right back. I imagine you are making some New Year's resolutions right now as you listen to this podcast. I imagine some of those involve personal fitness. You want to lose some weight. You want to get in shape. We all do. Let me tell you about a few of my friends. Adrian Williams, Jess Sims, Marcel Dinkins, Andy Spear. I've never actually met any of these people. We did have Jess on the podcast, though, because she's on College Game Day. But these are people who push me through workouts regularly, who push me to my limits and past them because they understand how to motivate me. Where are they from? They're from Peloton. They're Peloton trainers. And after a while, they just start feeling like part of the family. If you're not already part of the Peloton community, now is the best time to start because you can get up to $200 off accessories like cycling shoes, heart rate monitors, and more when you buy a Peloton bike, Bike Plus, or Tread, and up to $100 off accessories with the purchase of a Peloton guide to take your workout to the next level. So make this the first step toward achieving those fitness goals that you're going to set for your New Year's resolution that you wouldn't normally keep. But I'm telling you right now, if you join the Peloton community, you're going to have people holding you accountable. You're going to want to work out, and you're going to keep those resolutions. So get started now. All access membership is separate. The offer ends December 25th. It cannot be combined with our other offers. See additional terms at onepeloton.com.
So we're going to get to this Kirby Smart quote about quarterbacks.
We got to. I mean, I am fascinated because
it's Kirby Smart. I already agree.
Yeah, that's not a bad way to not a bad.
Here's
stance.
the thing: you'll hear the question and you'll hear the first part of the answer and be like, is he actually saying that out loud? And then you're like, yeah, okay, this makes sense. Here we go.
You guys didn't sign a quarterback in this class. Did that make recruiting guys any different or harder because there wasn't sort of this quarterback leader figure in there? And what kind of challenges going forward does not having a quarterback signing in this class possibly present to you guys?
I think it's irrelevant in today's day and age. The portal's full of them. There's going to be multiple guys in every year. You want to do the best job you can to get the best quarterback you can. When you have three quarterbacks, sometimes you don't have any, and when you have one quarterback, that's when you have a quarterback. And we're very pleased with what we have in our quarterback room. We think we got three quarterbacks that are going to be really good. So the concern wasn't about a quarterback, and none of the skill players made it about that. Because they know what we've signed the last really 3 or 4 years. They know what we have the potential to sign in 24. So it's one of those deals that the quarterback position kind of sells it based on who your offensive coordinator is and how your offense does, and we've excelled in that.
I agree with him. It's easy to say that when you've got 2 5-stars in your program already, in Brock Vandegrift and Gunnar Stockton. But when you're at the top of the food chain, you can get a quarterback when you need one.
Yeah, I wasn't taken back by anything he said.
If Georgia put out the notice, like if they decided that Vandegrift, Gunnar Stockton, Carson Beck, that none of them felt like they deserved to be the starting quarterback at Georgia, and they put out the smoke signal following spring practice, we're open for business, we want a quarterback. How many people jump in the portal to take a shot?
Everyone?
I mean, most everyone. Most everyone.
Yeah.
Well, the question that I have for you guys is...
But by the way, real quick, Ari, they did try and recruit a quarterback in this class.
They did.
Arch Manning. But it's easy to go all in on the top guy, and if you don't get him...
But I think what he's saying is that if you go all in on a guy and you don't get that guy, you don't have to force going to get somebody else. Because in the past, I've watched programs sign guys who were below the standard because they felt like they needed a body. And now... Like the question really is there going to be a Devin Leary type player in every single portal at the quarterback position every year moving forward? If you look at the 8 guys that we ranked the other night, Andy, is there going to be a collection of 8 dudes like that every year?
Yeah, somebody with real NFL tools, that sort of thing.
If you put Devin Leary on Georgia this year and he stayed healthy, would they not be in the same exact place that they're in right now?
I think they'd be in a very similar place.
So I can buy that. And if that's the case too, not forcing it makes you a more attractive place in the 2024 class. Because if you have a gap in signees, a lot of times it's hard to sign 5-star after 5-star after 5-star unless you're Alabama and get 2 top 100 players in the same class. You might be able to beat Georgia and say, hey, you know what? We're the University of Georgia. We're winning national championships. We didn't sign a quarterback last year. The next guy we take is going to be the heir apparent to who's starting right now. That makes you a lethal combination for other quarterbacks in that class. So, this is a very talented position now. And I think more so than any other position in college football, you can make the case that it's the hardest to develop as a quarterback in high school ranks. But I also think with all the tools that are out there between the Elite 11 and the personal quarterback coach, like Mitch, every single time you assign me a story to go write about a quarterback, whether it's a 5-star or a 3-star, I always get the phone number of the personal quarterback coach, because they all have them now, and the reason why I always am so quick to point to start the freshman now is because I know how much more equipped these guys are from a younger age to handle the burdens of playing that position in college. So, to me, I'd much rather hear Kirby Smart say what he said up there than watch Georgia take a 3-star prospect who, might be a very nice signee for a middle tier Power 5 team, but might not meet the Georgia standard. Because what are you doing? You're eating up a scholarship. And at those programs, when every scholarship could be a 5-star defensive lineman like Jordan Davis or, somebody else, you don't want to use those. So I think that's a really smart way of putting it. And
did you
and they have a 2024 quarterback. He's not a 5-star.
He was a 3-star.
Who's the dude this year?
What are you talking about?
The guy you voted for Heisman. His name's escaping me right now.
Jalen Carter. Yeah, Jalen Carter was a very
one of those dudes.
Yes.
Yeah,
very highly rated.
It's I meant to say Carter. So yes. But either way, the point stands. If you waste a scholarship on a quarterback who's not going to play for you, then you don't have room for the 3-star that turns into a man-eater as a first-round draft pick. So either way, Georgia's every scholarship.
Yeah, that's a Lad McConkey scholarship or a Jordan Davis scholarship.
I mean, that could be a Stetson Bennett scholarship.
Right, because he
wasn't a signee out of high school.
He was a walk-on out of high school, but he was a scholarship signee out of JUCO. So they did have to use one on him. Yeah.
Okay, so this transition to something, and this might answer my question because we're 40 minutes into the podcast and we have not talked about it yet. Honest answer. When 3 weeks ago, did you guys expect Deion Sanders to make a bigger splash in the early signing period?
I think he might still. If Cormani McClain ends up in Colorado, I think he might.
But it's not. You're talking more about quantity, I think, right?
Well, just yes, basically signed flipped Dylan Edwards from Notre Dame, 4-star, had a previous relationship, as you wrote about. Yep. So it's not like he just showed up and just had, because I'm thinking the first day he got, I forgot the kid's name, he is a 2025 top 10 player nationally commit to him. So it's not like he just snapped his fingers and all these 4 and 5 stars just flipped to him. So it's going to take relationship building, all that stuff. But
the thing that I'm curious
about, he's also got the Louis luggage on the way too.
One of his
the
guys
person who
decommitted.
thought was Louis Luggage didn't get a national letter of intent today.
Yeah,
the first guy that committed. But the thing that I'm interested in more than anything is if they flip McLean, then that's like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Like that's another Jackson State. It might not be quite as crazy because it's a P5 school, but it's up there. And two, if Deion Sanders knows that he is more lethal right now in the transfer portal this early on in his career there and has to flip his roster faster to get guys who can play immediately, I think that's where I would have expected him to make the most damage. So I'm not pulling any fire alarms right now based on that. There's a lot of guys that need to be flipped on that roster, and I think the place to do that right now is the portal, and I'm excited to see how that pans out. But if he signs a class that ranks 37th next year after a full year, I'd find that alarming.
Speaking of that, Travis Hunter with the unbelievable, like, this man's a businessman.
Yeah.
He didn't do it though. He's a liar.
He hasn't done it yet. Yeah, that's true. So Travis Hunter had 70-something thousand subscribers on YouTube when he puts this message out on Wednesday that says, if I hit 100,000 subscribers on YouTube, I'll announce where I'm going. He's at 105 as we're recording this at 10:03 p.m. Eastern on Wednesday night. He has yet to announce. We tried. We put out the same thing. We said we're going to do a tarp off show if we hit 100,000 YouTube subscribers. We are still look at that.
That's what you got to look
forward
to.
to.
That's half. 4 times a day. I get a FaceTime with the tarp off.
short.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Andy's going to start his OnlyFans. But hey, I looked it up. And
research, Ari.
I saw that if you have 100,000 followers on YouTube, you can make in between $4,000 and $6,000 a month from the ad revenue of that.
Correct. Yeah, I
so
went
it's a
down the
great
CPM
business
rabbit hole as soon as he put that out there. Absolutely.
I'm not a businessman. I'm a business man. Like I get it. I get it. I'm for it. And if he keeps, like, if he tweets right now, actually, when I get to 150, I'll do it. Just keep pushing the ball down the hill, pal.
Yeah.
So what are the chances he's at Colorado Buffalo next year?
I don't know. I mean,
Georgia.
It certainly seems like it's heading that way. He could go to Georgia, which is home for him. He could go to
Florida
Alabama.
State? Florida State.
If Travis Hunter wants to go to your school, you've got a scholarship for him.
But if his flip to Jackson State last year wasn't about Florida State, it was about Deion and Jackson State, and he transfers, then why did you just go to Florida State? They're better than they were when he committed. They've proven they can win some games.
Did you guys see what Hakeem Williams said today when he signed with Florida State? 5-star receiver.
Yeah.
He said, sign my national letter of intent. No Travis Hunter stuff here.
Very nice.
That's fair.
So I thought that was funny. But yeah, no, that's if they get McLean and Hunter playing side by side in the defensive backfield next year, and like if Shador Sanders is really good and Dylan Edwards
Shador is good, right? Like I saw Jackson State.
I don't know.
I think he's pretty good. I think he's legit.
Yeah. This is going to be very interesting to see. And yeah, if I'm Travis Hunter, I see how far I can get the YouTube subscriber count up, because that's worth the money. Right there.
Yeah. So it's like they had the worst offensive line in college football last year, though, right?
Yeah.
It was one of the worst ones.
One of the worst.
They had a lot of the worst. They had the worst a lot of things.
So
they still won a league game. They beat Cal.
For them to get to 6 wins, they probably need to get 20 more guys flipped.
Their non-conference schedule is difficult too.
So I don't know how lethal they can be in the portal, but that is going to be a very.
I'm going to be very curious to see what they do in the post-spring portal.
Yes.
Right.
Because
There's a lot of time left. Yeah.
Right. There's another wave of this. Like what you're seeing now is kind of tuckering out. There'll be a little spurt after the signees, after that dust settles. But then you won't see much again, and then the portal will close because it's a 45-day window, and it reopens again after spring practice, and that is where it could get interesting with Colorado, because that's where you see the people moving like, oh, I don't have a job. Like, I thought I was going to start for Alabama, or I thought I was going to start for Georgia. I want to start somewhere, and you go get it.
Yeah.
And Colorado's staff will know their roster better too. Not that they don't know they need talent everywhere, but they'll know their roster better.
Yeah.
I want to bounce around. A lot of other schools we need to hit on, but we talk a lot. You guys have talked about program rankings. Ari and I talk about, having the DNA to recruit at a high level, and people say Auburn, good job, bad job. And everyone says it's a great job because you can win big there.
Mm-hmm.
And
you
know what their class is? they had a coach who didn't recruit well. They had a coaching transition, and they're still going to sign a top 20 class. So it's not great, but it shows you the power.
Well, they hired they hired a coach who understands the job from recruiting. So like Hugh Freeze gets what
Didn't
the job
they flip
is.
5 players from 5 different schools?
They did, and that that tells you all you need to know.
It's a powerful brand.
Yeah,
like is Auburn going to be a top 5 class next year?
It's going to compete for that. Like I would not be shocked if it's a top 10 class.
I'd say top 10 is fair. Top 5 is hard.
But it just depends on who falls in love with you at that point.
Right. I mean, you got to give the guy credit. I mean, he flipped top 100 player from Florida State.
Yeah.
So, and I haven't looked. This would have been good for Hugh Freeze to be hired last year at this time because of how good the state of Alabama is this year. I haven't looked, and it's not going to be as good as it was this year. But they, Auburn historically recruits Georgia very well. It's basically in Georgia, Florida. So TCU.
Well, you said this, and it'd be interesting exercise. I don't think we'll get to it tonight, but did we ever write the story? Me, you, and Landis are supposed to do program rankings last year. Remember?
No, we did. I did it.
We never did it.
Hours and hours of research and data, and I've got them somewhere. And yeah, we had some formula on wins.
What would your top 5 program rankings be right now?
I mean,
it'd be hard to fill out the bottom half of the top 5.
Georgia and Alabama are obviously 1, 2. But I don't know where to put Ohio State.
Yeah,
where I would have easily put them 2 or 3.
Michigan's made the playoff 2 years in a row.
Exactly.
I mean, could you make the case that Michigan has a better program than Ohio State now?
At the moment, I have a mailbag question, and I'll pose it to you guys. I think it's interesting because the person asked it, and I think I feel like the question, like the premise of the question, was wrong, and basically the question was, is Harbaugh's success in the transfer portal, does that make up for? Is that a philosophy change, or is it indictment on his inability to get good high school players? And I'm like, no. The transfer rule change has allowed him to kind of bridge the gap, but they were recruiting high school players pretty well, just not at an Ohio State, Georgia level. But the fact that they've been so good in the portal and they can go get an Oluwatimi, who wins the Outland Trophy and the Remington Trophy, to go along with, by the way, 4 offensive linemen who you signed out of high school, who were ranked between number 165 overall and number, I want to say 350 overall. Like they're all 4-star players. Like those are building blocks for a successful group that you can have 5 future NFL players on your offensive line doing that. And they do. And I actually, and I pointed out, who are the most important players offensively in the Ohio State game? The 2 5-stars from the class of 2021.
Mm-hmm.
So he is getting them, just not to the same level.
Well, that's an interesting segue to their class, though, because they don't have a single top 100 player come out of high school this year.
Right.
But they just signed
their
5
worst class in a while,
and they just signed 5 players who are supposed to play immediately. So I guess the question isn't so much like, where would you put Michigan's team or program on the list right now, as much as it is this an effective way to go about roster building for the long term? Like, are you comfortable with this?
No, it has to get somewhat better, because you'll never beat Georgia this way, not consistently. Like you've figured out a way to out-culture Ohio State. That's fine. But Georgia is sort of the example, and Alabama most years is the example of what happens when you take this level of talent and you develop it properly. And you have to have more talent.
But do they get a pass?
Well, this year's interesting because this class, the building blocks of this class, a lot of that was happening while Jim Harbaugh was flirting with the Vikings. So now that he's not, and that doesn't seem to be an option anymore, does that change? Does that get better?
Because it's been 4 months or 5 months since that happened?
It's been 11 months since that happened.
Oh, man, that's right.
So
do you know how a calendar works?
No, I don't. Will you teach me?
But if you're recruiting at elite level,
Oh man, it's been 11 months. So how did that? So can you really say that the Vikings thing is what torpedoed
yeah,
the whole class?
because that's when the seeds of a class are planted.
Yeah,
Yeah, kids are hearing that from opposing schools. Like,
Yeah. So if it
10 months
doesn't
is a long time to recover, guys.
if it doesn't get better, well, no,
You can have a baby in that much time.
I'm worried about the 2024 class in this.
Yeah, and the 2024 class looks much better for them. So
it might be okay. But remember, they did have 2 top 10 classes in the last 4 before this. So it's not like they've been doing nothing. And that's what I'm saying. The difference in what the transfer portal is going to do is allow the teams that don't necessarily get the elite high school talent, or maybe they get some of it, but not a stockpile of it. It's going to allow them to close those gaps.
transition to TCU.
Hey,
Very, very quietly with a top 20 class.
highest ranked of the teams that will be in the Big 12 after next year.
And they've no top 100 players, but they've already added some difference makers in the portal. I really like Jack Beck, the LSU tight end, wide receiver, Tommy Brockermeyer from Alabama, JoJo Earl. So, like, they got good quickly, started recruiting better in their own state, and became a attractive transfer destination all in a matter of like 3 months. It's a perfect storm for them.
It's amazing because you've got Sonny Dykes and a staff that knows the state already. You've got a model that Gary Patterson put in place that everybody knows works.
and it's such a huge state that when players leave that you couldn't get, you're the perfect destination to come home.
You're the ultimate bounce back. It really is a good job by them to marry all of that together.
I mean, he's doing his plan from SMU at TCU, except it's easier to sell Power 5.
That's why you leave for SMU to TCU, and you piss off to SMU fans they get really mad at you. But I don't think he probably didn't think he was going to compete for a national championship.
But I also think that Sonny Dykes probably came into this job thinking it was going to be his last one. So if this is his last job, then he has some real opportunity to grow into something here.
Can I throw another one out there, guys? That I'm just going through the rankings now, and this one popped out to me.
So, I know what it's going to be, I think. Can I guess?
The number 2 class in this conference, once the people who are leaving leave.
Yeah.
Who is it? Tell me who it is. That's right.
It's the best class in program history. That's who I was going to guess.
Who?
Yeah.
I didn't hear.
Utah.
Oh, yep.
I mean, they're already great at developing what they got. Give them better raw materials to work with. That's pretty scary.
I think they got
2 conference championships in a row. Does for
Mitch. I think you know this because you edited Antonio's story, but I think the 2 offensive tackles that they signed, Spencer Fano and Caleb Lomu, are 2 of the top 10 players they've ever signed in program history. And then the tight end that they got
from Stanford. Well, yeah, Fanu is
the edge rusher.
Oh, yeah.
Hunter Clegg from American Fork, Utah, is in the top 15 of who they've ever gotten.
Yeah, so 3 of the top
15 all-time prospects.
Guys. Yes, that is correct. And going back to our Colorado discussion, I've had this conversation with Antonio Morales too. Is like, as much skill as Colorado brings in, wait until they play Utah for the first time and get just mauled at the line of scrimmage. They'll realize how quickly they need to beef up that spot there. But
guess who wanted both of these guys that we're talking about here?
USC,
the offensive lineman.
Yeah, they took both of them took visits to this place, and it's the reigning Joe Moore award-winning offensive line.
You talking about Michigan?
I am. Sharon Moore wanted both these guys. Like, I don't want to see them in 2 years if I'm a Pac-12 school. They're going to maul me.
I was very interested in this because I got a little saucy. I was between the hours of 3 and 4 p.m. today. I was real fired up. But John Wilner, the guy who broke the Big Ten news, tweeted something.
Yep.
And it says, "We interrupt the NSD National Signing Day related joy and panic across the Pac-12 footprint with 2 reminders. 1, Utah, 2, Oregon State. It's still about evaluating, developing, and fitting scheme to personnel." And I retweeted it with the lady from Fargo going, "Oh yeah," because like I don't know how to feel about that, because it's like on one hand it's correct because those teams have done a really good job. Like Antonio will be the first person to tell you that like Oregon State beat Oregon by
Without throwing a
putting
pass
up
in the
24
last- yeah.
points in the last quarter without throwing a pass. But on the other hand, it's like, well, neither of those teams are ever going to compete for a national championship, and that's what USC and Oregon want to do. So it's like, if the point of that tweet is don't get excited, Oregon fans, you're recruiting too well, like it makes me want to bang my head through a sheet of glass.
But here's the thing about Oregon. And Oregon and USC, we probably shouldn't even be comparing the two because they're not going to be in the same conference after next year, so it doesn't even matter. But
they have similar goals and they're in similar geography
Oregon's
still. So
Oregon's class looks more complete.
I agree.
That's it.
I mean, it is more complete.
It is more complete. And Dan Lanning obviously knows what that roster needs to look like to get where he wants to go.
And like the thing about it too is that like USC's class has Malachi Nelson in it. And like if Malachi Nelson is who we think he is, then it's just going to be like
another Caleb Williams
and
type.
it's the exact type column of what you wrote after the Pac-12 championship game.
Yep.
It's like you can keep building the same Oklahoma team over and over and over again, but when are you going to take that next step and actually
you're going to get the same results? Well, and so here's an interesting thought, because somebody asked me for the mailbag, where would this Texas and Oklahoma class rank in the SEC? And I believe they'd rank number 3 and number 5 in the SEC. But this Oklahoma class, as of this recording, is number 8 in the 24/7 composite. That is higher ranked than all but one Lincoln Riley class.
Yeah, no, it's been a great class for them. They had a few tough breaks, but they had a good class. Yeah,
that one Lincoln Riley class, by the way, that was ranked number 6, led by Spencer Rattler, Jaden Hazelwood, Austin Stogner. I guess Austin Stogner's back.
He's
Those
back.
are all people who transferred and didn't transfer to that USC. They two of them transferred to another USC.
Yeah, I'm with you on all that. So it is an interesting dichotomy there. But
All right. Did you
what
think
else you
that?
got? Did you make a trivia question?
I didn't do a trivia question.
What?
We had one Monday. I got busy. Ari,
What you edit the recruiting writer on National Signing Day and you act like you're busy? Come on,
dude.
Yeah.
slacking.
Andy was talking about the trivia question all day, dude.
I was so excited.
it
Breaks my heart.
I feel
You
shame.
broke
I feel
you broke
shame.
my heart.
Good.
No,
I gave you real
Shame is a
Bravo
good
tonight,
thing.
Andy. I've done my job.
I did. So, well, little inside baseball because we're at the hour and 2-minute mark. The random ranking in tomorrow's Dear Andy is defunct restaurant chains, and I was trying to remember the
Is
name.
Bennigan's on there?
Bennigan's is not defunct. Still exists.
Oh, there
and in
is.
fact,
There's one in Ohio, isn't there?
In fact, is serving some old steak and ale menu favorites. So
Where's the Bennigan's?
they're there. So I couldn't do Bennigan's, I couldn't do steak and ale, and I couldn't do Kenny Rogers Roasters because they exist in Southeast Asia now.
What about Home Dog Buffet? Is that on there?
It's not. Old Country Buffet made it, but so I could. There was a Mexican restaurant that is now defunct. I have Don Pablo's on the list too, but when the weekend I met my wife, I met her on the Thursday of Memorial Day weekend in 2000. We met at a bar, and in a thing that I hope my daughter never does, her friend asked if me and my friend wanted to go with all of those girls to her aunt's beach house in Daytona Beach for the weekend. And of course we're like, yeah, absolutely. If my daughter says she's doing that to two guys with two guys she just met at a bar, I'm putting the kibosh on that, but neither here nor there. Lovely Mexican dinner Friday night. Howard Jones, No One Is to Blame, was playing. I was trying to make my moves, which clearly ended up working, after almost 22 years of marriage. So I could not remember the name of the restaurant. It was on International Speedway Boulevard. It was right by the racetrack. It was Rio Bravo. I just said, when we started recording, or before we started recording, I said, Mitch, name some defunct Mexican restaurants. The first one he comes up with was Rio Bravo. I was like, yes!
I spent my 21st birthday there. I was on West End in Nashville. That was my first legal drink.
While you guys were just talking, I completely spaced out, and I've been nose deep in Bennigan's locations.
Where are they?
And there's one in Monahans, Texas, which is an oil town, like 4 hours east of where
you going?
or west. I mean, I think we should meet there for a show.
Well, yes.
Next,
And there's one outside of
signing
Amarillo.
day show.
Dude,
And
there's
again,
one outside of Amarillo, so you can come out to Amarillo. I'll make you do the steak challenge, and we'll hit a Benny's.
I'll do it. I love Bennigan's. The Monte Cristo is amazing, but the fact that they are serving steak and ale menu favorites, so I can also get the Kensington Club, really just.
I just wonder if the food
brings it to
quality
another
will
level.
make it feel like it used to.
I used to go to
Of
Steak
course
and
it
Ale
won't.
all the time.
Do you know how many Bennigans there are, like in El Salvador and like Dubai and Cyprus? What are these locations?
There's a Kenny Rogers Roasters in Dubai now. So,
Bro, dude, I got to tell you, coming soon, Bennigans, El Salvador, Guatemala, Pakistan, Honduras, and Nicaragua. Like, what are we doing?
man, I can't.
What
wait
about-
till these
what about
people discover
Dallas?
rats.
I can't imagine that Bennigan's is going to be more
Yeah.
popular in Pakistan.
The TGI Fridays survived, and Bennigan's did not.
But if you
is
were
one
the,
of the
if you were the
great-
franchise owner of a Benny's, would you put it in Pakistan or Dallas?
Well,
They
clearly
probably know what
it's
they're
been
doing.
tried in Dallas
Yes, yeah.
and failed. So
I don't know. I've never
It
been
had
to
its,
Pakistan. Maybe
good run here, and they're trying elsewhere.
maybe they like clam strips in Pakistan. I don't know.
So
Very odd coming soon.
yeah, the
so
Bennigan's on Bruce B. Downs Boulevard in the New Tampa neighborhood of Tampa got a lot of my money in the early 2000s. A lot.
That's funny.
all right, do we? Is it time to say goodnight?
I think it is. I don't know what else is going to happen.
I mean, Andy and I have 3 podcasts we're recording tomorrow, so we'll fill in
Oh
the
my
gaps if
God.
anything.
There is that. This is true. We're back to
Might as well
picking
just-
games, though.
Yeah, we're gonna pick some games, and
We got the bowl pick extravaganza. Nicole's coming back for that, and we're going to be terribly wrong on most of these games.
Western Kentucky is beating South Alabama badly right now. It's like 24.
Well, Austin Reed's back, baby. I don't want to hear any of you complaining about NIL if Western Kentucky and Tulane can manage to keep their quarterbacks.
Austin Reed just threw a pick as you said that. You're a jinx.
Jinxed him.
They're
know
still
what?
winning big. So
He's a much wealthier guy who just threw a pick.
yeah,
I don't know if
So-
that's his Corvette that he drove onto the field in that video. Or
He's
just
got a
to
brand
drive
new
it on the field.
2006 Corvette, and he has a company car with
That's
with
not
Benny's.
2006.
With Benny's.
I will be driving right by
Do
the
not
Corvette.
turn him into Coach Letterman. Austin Reed is not Coach Letterman.
Yeah. I'll be driving right by the Corvette Museum
is
or
weird
whatever it
with
is in
Ant-
Bowling
this is-
Green tomorrow.
Oh my God. Just gotta say it. I've used to drive past that Bowling Green Corvette Museum. And when I was a kid, a baby, I always used to like sit in the back seat and I'd go, Mommy, Corvette. Like I would like be able to point them out. Because I really wanted one when I was like 3 years old. And they always said it was crazy because I could like point out Stingrays. Like I knew every Corvette even before like I was supposed to know that. So Landis and I were driving to the national championship game in Dallas from Columbus because we're road trip weirdos, and we stopped there because I wanted to go in there.
on that route.
Because like I do think that like eventually I'm gonna buy a 1969 Corvette Stingray with T-tops. Like I'm gonna get one day because they're actually not that expensive, and it's like I've always wanted one. And I was like, Landis, I want to go into this Corvette museum. It's my favorite car of all time, just from since I was a baby. And we walked in, and I saw the most beautiful human being I've ever seen in my entire life. So if you still work there,
Landis?
yeah,
Landis he's quite beautiful.
yeah, time stopped when I saw her. She was working the front desk. So if you stop at the Corvette museum, will you let me know? If
Probably
it's her?
won't stop with my family tomorrow to check out this.
Just stop in and use the bathroom and see if she's there.
Yeah. All right, Ari, why don't you do your thing in the Stars Matter podcast?
That was the latest edition of Stars Matter. Thank you so much for listening. We will catch you next week.
Alrighty.